How's it going, fam? Welcome back to Erica's EDC, and today we're talking about batoning. Oh no, the voodoo topic of the knife world. Should we baton with our knives? It is a constant debate. Some people love it, some people hate it. We're going to talk about it today, and I want to talk about why I personally don't mind batoning with my knives, what I look for in a knife that I do intend on batoning with, and we're just going to talk about the whole thing in general, okay? So I'll lower you guys down in a second to look at a couple of options here, but if you don't know what batoning is, it is essentially when you take a piece of wood and you use a knife. In this case, we're talking about knives. You can baton with other things, but you take a knife and you basically use a bat of some sort, another heavier piece of wood, and you hammer this knife through to split it down into smaller pieces. The reason being is that you can break that limb down into smaller sections like this. Then you can feather stick with it. You can break this down even further. You can make kindling, and it's just way easier to make a fire. And quite frankly, sometimes in the wilderness, you just have to break down wood, especially if it's damp and you have to dry it out. It's just easier to start a fire with smaller pieces. I mean, you can't just chuck this into a fire pit and light it on fire. That's not really how it works. So batoning is something that a lot of people really enjoy and they practice and utilize out in the woods, but there's definitely a section of the community that finds it completely unnecessary and actually hates it. So I'm gonna lower you guys down. We're gonna look at some knives here that I have enjoyed batoning with, and I'm gonna kind of go over what I think is really important in a knife that you're going to do that with. So I also have my EDC knife here, which I'm gonna bring in a second, but these are all knives that I find usable for batoning tasks. For me, the knife has to be 8 inches or longer because I need a good amount of handle to hold on to and a long enough blade to surpass the circumference of the wood. So if we bring this piece back in here, I need enough hanging out of the side to actually hit with the baton, okay? If we were to bring this hefty piece of maple in, this is pushing it a little bit more. Still feasible, but it's just a little trickier, okay? So I really like having at least 8 inches to work with. Definitely a decent amount of blade length, over 3 inches, but the handle, the handle length is equally as important as the blade length because you need to be able to get a good purchase on that and hold on while you're banging this through the piece of wood. It also needs to be comfortable. So there are different types of handles that people like. This one is a flat-sided handle, which is actually quite comfortable. This is a Coke bottle, but a very slim and subtle one. Then you have some really true Coke bottles like this Adventure Sworn R series here. Notice this one also has a flare in the back, so it kind of locks your hand in. And then this is another flat-sided one. This one is an Adventure Sworn that's been rehandled by Josh Francis. He did that one too. This is just more comfortable for me compared to that. And then you can have, you know, everything in between, kind of hybrids, more subtle. But the handle ergonomics equally as important as the blade. It needs to be comfortable. Also, in my opinion, if you're going to have a knife that you're batoning with, I really like it to also have a sharp spine. Some people carry a ferro rod striker with them, but I find that if you're going to bring a ferro rod, you might as well just have the knife utilizing a sharpened spine so you don't have to carry an extra piece of gear. You can just literally strike the ferro rod with the spine of the knife. Grind for me also matters. This knife right here is a convex grind, but it looks flat. This is not necessarily the best at batoning. You have to remember that once you get through the surface of the wood and it's actually going through the splitting process, it's really the geometry that's pushing through the wood. So a lot of people like batoning with Scandi grinds. A lot of people like batoning with saber grinds, especially the saber, because this shoulder right here acts as a wedge, pushing and splitting through the wood very well. And if you have a thick stalk, like on this one, it's really splitting that very efficiently for you. If you have something like this, where it's a convex or flat grind, you don't necessarily have that geometry and that shoulder in your favor pushing and splitting the wood apart, okay? So I've used this 2-baton. This one does much better with smaller pieces, but anything large in diameter, not so much. It just doesn't have the oomph to get through it. But I do think that batoning is a good skill to practice, because for some people, batoning wood with a knife and breaking it down into smaller pieces is safer than using an axe, okay? You have a lot of control over a knife. Now, I have injured myself batoning. You guys have seen that on the channel, but that's because I am extremely unintelligent. If you're a normal person with a brain, generally speaking, batoning can actually be safer to break down small pieces of wood, because trying to use an axe, especially once you start getting into the kindling, guys, trying to use a hatchet or an axe to split this down can definitely be dangerous. You don't have a lot of control, and a knife is really efficient at breaking this down into smaller pieces to feather stick and to build a fire with. So just for reference here, this is my current personal EDC, the Duckhead Forge Ranger in Pro Cut. This is probably my favorite size for EDC tasks, but you'll kind of notice the difference here. Let me move this out of the way. We definitely have a difference in length overall on the knives that I use for outdoor tasks, including batoning, okay? I wouldn't recommend using something EDC sized to baton with. You really run the risk of just being too cramped up in this space, and you guys have seen it before. I have hit my hand very badly during batoning, having too cramped of an area to work with, essentially, not enough blade length, and I actually got pretty injured. So when your hand covers most of the handle, for me, that is probably too small. This is great for an EDC knife. This is perfect for my everyday carry, but I personally like to have a little more room to move around, like this. Notice how I have some hanging off the back here, so if I need to back my hand up, I have that space. I wouldn't go this small. This is 7 and 7 1/8 maybe inches long. All of these are over 8 inches. I really wouldn't recommend trying with something this small unless you're breaking down little tiny pieces like this. The Ranger could do, but quite frankly, I would focus on knives 8 inches or over. That way you've got that extra length for safety, nice and comfortable. But also make sure you're picking a handle shape that actually works for you. Again, some people like the flat-sided knives. I actually really enjoy this one. Some people like Coke bottles. Some people like the really true, thick, fat Coke bottles like this. Now see, for this doesn't actually work very well for me. This is way too thick, and it's because my hands are so small. This is too bulky, and this actually wants to roll around in my hand. So for me, even though everyone says, oh, Coke bottles, traditional Coke bottles, that's what you should be using, try it yourself. Just because everyone says that you should be doing it doesn't mean that it's going to work for you personally. This, you would think in theory, would work well for me because it works for everyone else. It doesn't. It actually rolls around in my hand, and I don't have enough control over it because this knife is also just too long for me, okay? So for me personally, being a smaller person, the kind of 8-inch, 8.5-inch realm works better. Or if it's a longer knife like this one or the Mountaineer here, it actually works much better for me to have it rehandled with flat scales. This slims the profile down. I really get a much better grip, and those corners grab in my hand and it doesn't roll around like a Coke bottle, okay? So this actually works better for me on a long, 9-inch long knife. I just really enjoy having those flat scales. So I suggest that if you're going to try batoning with your knife, definitely focus on handle ergonomics and length, just because everyone says in the bushcraft world that a bushcraft knife has to have a Coke bottle handle. Maybe try it out yourself first. In terms of Coke bottles, this is about as far as I can go. These two right here. That's about as far as I can go with a Coke bottle handle. Once I start trekking into that territory, it is too thick, too bulky, too uncomfortable, and this, I hate this word, bulge, if you will, right here, really doesn't actually feel that great in my hand. Let me raise you guys back up here. So I think the reason that people vote against batoning is because they feel that a knife is for cutting, which I get. I say that very often. A knife is a cutting tool meant to cut things, right? But I do think that we have knives specifically designed to do things other than cut, okay? We definitely have knives that are really thick. They're built to do things other than cut. Maybe they're built to process game or to break down firewood and to start fires and all of the things. I understand knives are meant to cut 100%, but there are definitely knives that are kind of multi-tools of the outdoor world, like bushcraft knives. And I don't see a problem in doing it as long as you have the right knife, the right length, you've practiced with it, you have a nice comfy handle that actually works for you, you're not working with pieces of wood that are too wide. This could really get you hurt if you're going out there with a knife like this and trying to baton a piece like this. You could absolutely hurt yourself. So I think choosing all of the right characteristics of this process are definitely, really important. But I enjoy batoning. I think it's fun. I think it's a safer way for me personally to process firewood. And yes, I know I've hurt myself doing it before. I've never cut myself batoning. I've only hit my hand with the baton, and that was very painful. But I don't see a problem with it. I think it's a good test for knives too. Again, if they're made for outdoor use and they're thick enough to handle it, I think it's a great test of strength and toughness and durability. And, a lot of people do that task with their knife. But I just wanted to show you guys a couple of options here, just talk about it because, summertime is coming, although it doesn't look like it, does it? I'm bundled up here. It's like 40 degrees and windy and cold. But summer is technically supposed to be on its way, which means bonfires, camping, all of the things, and lots of outdoor woodcraft, breaking down firewood. So I just wanted to kind of talk about it, and if you've, been on the fence, if you don't know if you're supposed to do that, this is kind of just my my little PSA saying yes, a lot of us are fine with it, a lot of us do it. Just make sure you grab the right tool for the job, the right length, all of the things. I know you guys are gonna ask, so let me lower you guys back down real quick and just show you these models. These are ones that I've clearly really tested. If you're interested in some outdoor knives that have worked for me very well, these are both Otters from Levi at Northern Knife Works. This was the first version and the blade was a little too wide, so it has been revised. This is more of like a prototype, and the actual version is this. This is actually pretty cool. These are in 3V 63 to 64 HRC, sharpened spine, really aggressive jimping, really comfortable Coke bottle handle, and plenty thick enough to baton with, all of the things. What I like about this one is that it has a very kind of nimble feel. It is a beast. I mean, look at that stock thickness. You can absolutely do some work with this, but it's more nimble than a lot of outdoor knives. You actually have a lot of movement and flexibility with the way this handle is configured. It's very comfortable. You've got a nice guard right there, so you're not sliding up toward the blade if that, worries you. This is a very cool knife. This is the Otter. You can find them on Levi's website. They're available. Rough finish, green micarta, so nice and grippy. There's no, polish on that. It doesn't have that shiny finish like this. Nice and rough. Another really great one is the Duckhead Forge Chum. This is a great outdoors knife. Really, really comfortable. Great blade length. Now again, this doesn't have the saber grind. It's a convex and it's more flat. So, this isn't going to go through really thick pieces of wood that well, but I have had a blast doing woodwork with this and just outdoor tasks in general. This is a really comfortable one. The Chum is a great knife. And then everybody knows Adventure Sworn knives. These have been around forever. I've had this one for, I don't even know how many years, man. It's got to be close to 10, maybe 7 or 8, something like that. This is the Adventure Sworn Mountaineer. This is the one that became famous, I think, because Joe Robinette had one on Alone, and he also showed it a lot on his channel. Mine is beat to crap. It's been sharpened, as you can see. I had the scales redone because the Adventure Sworn ones are just too bulky for me, generally speaking, so I had some nice flat micarta scales put on. Natty finish. They've got the wax on them from Knife Handle Supply, so super dang grippy. Locks right in. Had the scallops put in there for pinch grip. But this is a great one. This has a lot of good length on it to baton with, which I've done hundreds and hundreds of times with this knife. This thing is just beat up. And then this is a newer model from Adventure Sworn. This is called the R Series Explorer. This is basically a, mid-tech version of the Explorer, so it's a little more affordable. Still has the great fit and finish and everything of the Explorer, but it's got, some more basic handles, just orange G10 black liner. AEBL steel, 62 HRC, great knife. Still got the Scandi grind, still got all the good stuff, but it's just more affordable. Again, I can use this, but I don't necessarily baton with it anymore or anything. It's just a little too bulky for me, but it's got a great length on it. And this is these two are kind of like famous classic outdoor knives. These are really good. So I just wanted to talk about that with you guys today. Like I said, it's kind of been an ongoing conversation. I've gotten a lot of comments about it, and I just think you have to pick the right knife, the people that are like disgustingly against batoning, I don't understand why. I don't see why it's that big of a deal. A lot of people do it, but yeah, there's some options. Those are ones that I use, and yeah, I think that's it. I will see you guys on the next video. Need to use your shit. This is actually a pretty good one. This one's pretty beat up. The prototype Otter. Go use your shit. Learn how to sharpen your knives. I'll see you guys on the next video. I love you so much, fam. Take care.